This video is somewhat in response to a recent Art Chad video that's called something like Video Essays Are Ruining a Generation of Writers, which is essentially 7 minutes to say that video essays don't need to be so goddamn long. Brevity is the soul of wit. Ironically, about halfway through the video, I was like, how can I only be halfway through this video? I feel like it's already completely made its point and there's still half the runtime left, because it really wasn't about anything other than this one thing. Like, it was not about every way that video essays are ruining a generation of writers, of which there are many, many things that could be said, but I don't want this to end up being a super long video. I'm not really trying to go in any more depth than Art Chad did, because I kind of have the opposite opinion. Not that I don't think it's ruining a generation of writers. I think basically you're either good or you suck, and what influences you really is going to depend on your taste. Like, if you just have shitty taste and therefore you consume shitty influences, your stuff's going to suck. If you have good taste and you're trying to copy things that rule, you have much better odds of your stuff being great. So there are plenty of writers who are going to take notes from all these shitty overwrought video essays and try to copy them and do an even worse job of something that already sucks, and it just turn out all kinds of embarrassing material. But that's always been the case. There has always been plenty of bad writing. Sturgeon's revelation states that 90% of everything is crap, and I really cannot emphasize enough how much I have taken for granted that that rule is just an absolute universal truth. If you look at anything categorically, and, like, unless it is selected for quality, like, unless you have drawn a circle around things that rule, then, like, otherwise, if you're drawing a circle around any other category of a thing, you're probably going to find that 90% of it is the shit part and 10% of it is the great part. So the idea that video essays have, like, gotten worse or whatever, not really. Like, I've been watching every video essay forever. Obviously I can't keep up with all of it anymore. There's so much. There was a time where I legitimately felt like I had seen every video essay that had come out, maybe like 2013, and then there was such an explosion of it through people like me becoming influential doing that style, that now it's commonplace. And yes, YouTube rewards you for making the longest video possible. And yes, that's why a lot of these video essays suck, is that they're trying to chase that. But I don't think they're tricking people into thinking that is, like, a better way to write. I don't think that they're making people, like, take it for granted that, like, this is how everything should be. I think people go from that content, which they use to pad out stretches of their day where they're not really paying attention, and then they consume something that is more dense, and they feel like, this is good content. This is real content. This is that good stuff. Like, the hope would be, watching that Art Chad video, that you come away from that feeling like, I will remember those points he made. It's not about filling time in my day. It's about, that was a good point made there, and I'm going to take that with me going forward. Now, again, I personally think that brevity is the soul of wit was already a pretty fucking solid explanation, and 7 minutes wasn't really necessary to say that. But my videos are known for being somewhat dense. I'm being a little repetitive in this one for funsies. I thought it was hilarious that later into Art Chad's video, he mentions ContraPoints and H-Bomber Guy as examples of people who make, like, really long content, but it's still very dense and meaningful. And I'm like, while that is the case, and I like both of their videos, I do think they are, like, laborious. Like, they dot every I, cross every T. They really repeat themselves quite a bit. And I've always kind of put up with that as, like, okay, I can tolerate that because I understand that it's fitting to what they're talking about, but it's also what makes it annoying to consume this type of content. Like, personally, I prefer things to be the way I do it, where it's just getting the fucking ideas out in a way that someone who's willing to give grace as a listener would understand. I hate having to account for people who are not going to give grace as listeners. I simply try to scare those people out of my audience. But you know, I'm also not making the big bucks that those creators are, so that's probably why. But I also, in my mind, I think there's like a hard division between people who are playing the YouTube game deliberately and people who are just kind of doing whatever they want. And I see Art Chad as one of these channels that falls into a strange middle ground of like feeling like he's supposed to be chasing those big numbers, but also feeling like, you know, the culture of YouTube is wrong to be the way that it is, and that, you know, there's this sort of latent desire to shift the thing, and I feel that, but it's not something you like. The people will always like shit as long as there is like enough content to fill up the day. That's more important than that all the content is good to people in general. And that's been the case before video essays were what was filling that hole. There's always been the slop content that just fills the hole, that's easy to consume, that doesn't require you to give it a lot of thought, give it a lot of emotional dedication or attention. You can just have it there because being in silence is boring, you know, compared to having something that at least sparks a little bit of joy, a little dopamine rush out of the corner of your eye. So I understand the necessity almost of the lengthy slop content, and even if like I don't think I've made a lot of super long videos that are like that, I would say my live streams are that type of content. You know, that's the point of it, is to kill time throughout the day. It's like it's a friendship simulator to an extent, you know, with like a little bit of a weird parasocial tinge to it. But in terms of like the good stuff, like I've been kind of talking about how, yeah, there are problems with video essays, and I agree with what Art Chad was saying about the conciseness, but there's also just so much good video essay content on YouTube that I don't have a problem of like running into this like overlong, boring, like slop stuff that would like tarnish me as somebody who tries to consume good things, you know, protect my taste, protect my brain from bunk information. You know, I try to have so much good stuff I can watch that there is no time for slop. You know, there is no time for those to fill in space between the really good stuff if there's always really good stuff. And not all of that really good stuff is even necessary. Like, okay, so the only channel that I'm a member of is the Company Man, right? And the Company Man never makes slop content, but there's plenty of videos that he makes that aren't really relevant to me, that are really just kind of interesting little news stories that, you know, I don't have to give my full attention to every single story that he talks about. He might make several 25-minute videos in a day, you know? And some of that to me does become that kind of background noise, but I'm willing to put it there because I know it's good. Like regardlessly if I am fully paying attention to it, I don't think that it's losing my attention because it's like not innately of quality. It's just that I can't always pay attention to everything that I put on in a day. You know, like I do sometimes want to have stuff as background noise. I just don't want it to be pure slop. It can be something I'm not super interested in as long as it's actually good. You know, that's the part that matters to me. So like the Company Man makes videos that are tremendously engaging, that like when he talks about something I am interested in, it's like a full attention grabbing thing, you know, something I'm just listening to what he's saying. But I can also, because he makes so much content, also have stuff that I can just listen to in the background. And I'm sure a lot of people treat my content the same way, where sometimes it's stuff that's like hyper engaging, and sometimes it's stuff that's a little bit more throw it on and just kind of listen to me casually in the background. I would think this video falls more into that second category. Um, Deleted is a really fun channel that does what I would call pack out videos, you know, like essays about why someone sucks and needs to stop their behavior, that are always quite interesting. I'm literally going to go alphabetically through like people I'm subscribed to and just talk about some of the great video essayists. FD Signifier is like a legendary video essayist. A Lillian, oh my god, A. Lillian's videos make me unreasonably emotional. They are like true works of art. Some of the best videos I've ever seen, for sure, on the platform. Abso-fucking-lutely, one of the like. So she's a strategist who talks about hip hop from the position of a strategist, and it's super interesting. Um, A. Collier, I can't remember if I've actually seen many of her videos. This is another one where it's like, oh man, she only covers stuff that I don't have any interest in, but she covers it so well that it makes me want to watch it. Um, all right, who else do I have in here? Acer Aesthetics, who talks about like all of the From Software games. Aphrodisia, I overthink pop culture so you don't have to. Yeah, not much more to say than that. I haven't even made it through the letter A. I've already recommended like 10 channels. Amelie Doré, who's the trans girl who does videos on visual novels and sometimes other stuff. At this point, I'm just reading what they've written about themselves because that's simple enough. Ant Dude, the ultimate Nintendo coverage channel. If you want to see every baby game talked about at extreme depth. Anthony Aiken Jr., great YouTube. Anthony Aiken Jr., a great YouTube hip hop essayist. I mean, I honestly, I feel like this would take forever for me to actually go through every single. I literally just in the letter A had like 15 channels I can recommend. If you just go through my subs, like, I don't know if you can do that actually. I feel like I could recommend an endless number of channels, and obviously I have my top videos of 2024. My top, I did like a top videos of this year so far, way back in January, and I already had so many videos inside of a couple weeks that I quickly realized I could not like keep that as a series that I would do regularly all year because there's just too much. There's too much good stuff, and like for me, a big part of it is like why I have content every day is that I follow lots of hip hop content. And so there are, a ton of channels I follow that post like almost every day that do analytical deep dives into lyrics of new songs, into like drama going on between rappers. And so I'm always kind of getting like a news drip feed of analytical stuff about the hip hop world. And then there are YouTubers who, do similar styles to me who post frequently, like Professor Sky, who also talks about mostly hip hop but other music as well, and does like an album review almost every single morning, There's just tons and tons of channels that go through whatever, type of obscure media they're into. When it comes to video games, like I can't even think of a video game that doesn't have like a minimum 30-minute analysis video that's good that I could recommend, like name a video game. And I'm like, okay, between K-Bash, Noah Caldwell-Gervais, Matthew Vitosis, who's not even active anymore, but still you could go back and watch those videos. They still hold up. Like between all of the good video essayists, B-Mask, fucking Narrow, like what games aren't being covered? Super Bunny Hop, like there's just again, I'm trying to think of any piece of media that doesn't have some kind of analysis video on it. And like when it comes to video games, if you get into like old games, there's tons and tons of historical videos, guys like Jeremy Parrish who just categorically go through every video game and talk about its history and development. Gaming historian, like video games are so deeply well covered. Music has not historically been all that well covered, and like the hip hop sphere is kind of new, spawning from this Kendrick Lamar Drake beef. And talking about Kendrick Lamar and Drake is still the only way to really get views in that sector, but it's still been growing, and it's been this interesting thing to watch evolve over the last year. And hopefully, it will spread to encompass more of music, because still music is super underrepresented as a talking point on YouTube, mostly because it's so hard to play it on YouTube. You know, you can't play anything copyrighted at all, so it's really hard to talk about music without playing any of it. But yeah, that's the struggle with YouTube, is of course content ID makes everything difficult to talk about. But when it comes to movies, when it comes to TV, there's no movie that comes out and doesn't get a good analysis video if it's like at all popular. You know, there's no TV show that's not getting talked about. So are all of the videos about everything good? Not necessarily, but sometimes the novelty of it even existing is worth it. You know, like, I'm not necessarily looking for every video to be the best video that it can be, like, imaginably, so much as the best video that person can make, you know? And, like, there's tons of analysis videos I've watched that aren't really, like, well written in the way that, like, my videos are poetic. That's why people like my writing style, is that even though it's analytical, I use so many weird metaphors and I write in such a fucking Yoda-ass backwards kind of way that it sounds poetic. And most analytical content is like, well, I watched the show back in January, and my first opinion was that it wasn't that good, but then later I realized that it actually was that good, and I'm going to tell you why now. Like, my videos are like, you know, time doesn't always work the way you think it does. Sometimes your perception is actually warped, and you're like, wait a minute, is this a fucking K-On analysis? You know, like, that type of shit. So, like, what I'm doing is a little bit different, but that's just a stylistic thing. It doesn't make my videos innately better. It might appeal to certain people more, but, like, I keep thinking about this one 7-hour Bomberman analysis that is very dry in its writing. I wouldn't say that it's, like, not dense, because it's 7 hours because it's Bomberman. Bomberman has unfathomable number of installments. So, like, it's kind of actually pretty quickly going through each Bomberman game. It's just very comprehensive. And it was not something that I at any point thought, I'm going to take in all of this information. Like, at no point did I think I'm going to memorize 7 hours worth of information about the Bomberman franchise. I just wanted to know, in general, what the fuck had been going on with Bomberman, because I played it for the N64 and like a couple of GameCube and GBA games, and never played any of the rest. And there's like 50, 70, whatever Bomberman games. So this video was very informative, even if sometimes the description of a game is, well, this one's basically the same as the last Bomberman, except for in this case, there's a pink sprite instead of a purple one. And it's like, I don't care, you know, but it's interesting holistically to keep glancing over and see the thing evolving and see where it's at. And there's certain games that are more interesting than others, or parts where, you know, they're talking about the development history, or like why there is now a change happening in spite of the last 5 things being the same thing, you know, getting to the games that I actually care about and spiking the nostalgia. Like, there were lots of nuggets of reason to have watched that video buried throughout the 7 hours. And I didn't feel like, oh, I wasted my time because I heard a bunch of stuff I didn't care about. No, I was like doing stuff, you know. I was like writing and working and probably fucking doing my own videos. So, like, it made me really happy that there is a resource for all of that information on Bomberman, and I was not asking for it to be a well-written analysis video. A lot of the stuff I talk about, other people have already talked about it. You know, my stuff has to be compelling because it has to be competitive with 200 other fucking videos talking about the same thing a lot of the time. It's very rare that I've ever been like the only analysis video on this thing, you know? Sometimes I'm the only one that goes really in depth, but again, that is just me being competitive. It's just like, how do I make mine stand out and not say the same thing that everybody else said? And that also makes my videos stand out in perpetuity, because it makes it so there's not that sense of this was only created in the moment. It was created to be something that you could return to because it is distinct and so it's memorable. You know, it doesn't bleed into, all the other similar things that were said about the subject when it was at its peak relevancy. So, I especially appreciate analysis videos that are not about whatever the newest thing is, but we're also at a point now where there are so many people who are good at talking about what the newest thing is that I don't even mind those either. Like, it used to be that if a new movie came out, the best you were going to get was like the YMS quickie. Like a YMS talking for like 5 to 7 minutes about like, and what I really liked was the scene where this person did this thing that was super realistic, and it really made me feel like I was in the movie. And then in this later scene, it really took me out of the movie. And like, just kind of really middle of the road, like, here's my opinions, consumer review type stuff. And like, I don't really think that kind of thing is super relevant anymore. And I'm really excited that now we get, like, the movie Sinners came out. And within like a couple weeks of seeing this film, I've got like multiple 20-minute in-depth analysis, like videos. The one that comes to mind first is I'm Just Saying. I was like surprised because the movie's still in theaters, and it's like, but it had so much impact, and this person is just so good at doing that kind of analysis that they unpacked all kinds of interesting thoughts and meanings out of the movie on first blush, So, yeah, I feel really well served is what I'm trying to say. And if you don't feel well served, come to me, seriously. I will hook you up. I know the channels. Like, it bothers me a little bit when people say things like anime analysis isn't good anymore, or like there's no good analysis videos, and I'm like, well, then what the fuck did I make all those recommendation videos for? Like, I didn't make a top what was it? It was the top 25 YouTube videos of 2024 plus 150 honorable mentions or something like that. It's like a 2.5 hour video of me just listing great analysis videos that came out last year. I don't think all of them were analysis videos, but most of them were. And then I also did the one from this year, and again, I could go on and on. I can just list great analysis videos all day. So, please don't live in the mindset that, like, just because there are these annoying, long, boring, tedious, badly done analysis videos, that is all that's out there. Like, it might be the norm, but the norm has always sucked. Again, 90% of everything has always been trash. But when there's only 10% of it that's good, and there's only like 100 videos, those 10 videos are way more likely to stand out. You're not that likely to find the 90 shitty videos. You are way more likely to find one of the 900 shitty videos than, when it's 100 out of 1,000. So like, I just think the shittiness has become way more visible over time, but we also have way more great stuff. We do have 100 as opposed to 10 great videos that are coming out in a week. And you can completely fill your time with good stuff and never even have to dip your toes into the shitty stuff because there is so much good. You just have to be like vigilant with how you engage with the media. Stay watching the channels are good. Watch the videos that aren't necessarily about subject matters you're interested in, but the content creator is good. Because if you always pick based on just subject matter, sometimes you might get something like Bomberman, where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily think that this creator is somebody I would always love, but I'm interested in this subject, so I'm going to watch this video. But if you are always just like, I'm going to categorically watch every fucking Arcane analysis, you're going to watch 90% shitty Arcane analysis, you're going to maybe enjoy like the gay autistic Mormon Marine videos and then be like, why was none of the other ones good? Like, I just really have to emphasize, it's about the creator. It's about what they make. And if you like this type of content and you're passionate enough about it to be complaining about it, then watch all the good stuff and ignore the bad stuff. You don't have time for it to get to all the good stuff. All right, that's enough of this. I'm going to read the names off of the members. I have to take a shit, so I'm ending this clip. All right, shout out to Radio Nights, The Rabbit, Brianna W., Baba Gaducius, Max Potion TCG, Petrichor VT, Pika Pika 2000, Sister of Scarlet, Kudere-kun, Mayday from Space, Isabel Incorporated, Spectral, The Mr. Grafixable, Aqua Bunny, Oh My Guy, Yodi Land Wizard, Just Anna, Poopy Doopy, commenter number 456, Elaine, Spacey Filmer, Your Stuff is Cool, CC, Yakuman, Plague on Humanity, ASE Presents, Towel Cat, Denakori, Brody, Z-Cypher, Gary Always, Gigadonk, Zerakiel, Zen Huxtable, Duncan264, Gassy Hall, Taperclip, Asapi, and Night Night. That's right. We're up to 40 now. Beautiful people. Thank you so much. Love to have you here. Convince all your friends to join too.